record. Okay, hello, what up, guys? Welcome to Spirituality Podcast. My name is Peace, and today we have a wonderfully talented co-host slash guest, Mir Harris.
Hello.
As always, we're going to start with our gifts of gratitude, and then I'm really actually so excited about today's topic because I feel like it's needed right now in this time in society. And also the person that I'm talking, like Mia, I love how real and raw you are. So I'm glad to be having this conversation with you. So yeah, 3 things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for discernment. I learned that's a true gift that I didn't have before and I didn't really know I needed. But now that I have it and I use it, I'm so grateful for the power of it.
Yeah.
I'm also grateful for my daughter, per usual, the best thing in the world. And I'm grateful for just myself and who I am today in this moment and the work that I've done to get here. I'm really grateful for that because it was
Those
hard.
are solid. I would definitely add all 3 of those to my list.
Yes.
I think I have my handy dandy gratitude journal right here, funny enough. So
Where is the journal from? Where'd you get this from?
I don't know. So I'm not even gonna lie, like I have a knack for just finding really cool things like, oh, that's me. Like at the most random of places. I think this was from a store on Melrose, I want to say. But I was like, oh, yep, and it was the last one.
Ooh, I love that.
I love that. I love it.
Oh,
That's for me. I'm grateful for quiet. I'm increasingly aware how much I love my alone time, which is, I guess that's like a twofer. Quiet and alone time. I really love it. I'm grateful for warmth. I know that that's something that's like kind of obscure or something that we don't really think of, but whether it's the warmth of the sun or like getting cozy in my bed to like get some rest. And I'm grateful for healing. Whether it is, I was sick over the past couple weeks and like the body's magical way to heal, or the healing we do from traumas and micro traumas, or, just overall healing of spirit.
yes, the mind body is such a powerful, it's so powerful. Like the body, the immune system in general is just like be doing its job, and we don't even acknowledge it.
It's literally fascinating. So this might be an overshare. So I had a infected tonsil and it like swelled up to the point of like I couldn't swallow and it was blocking my air pipe. So I had to go to the ER and it turned out to be this like abscess, and like I'm like one of those kids that's like look at it, like
Yeah.
like let me like dissect the things, like let me take a picture or whatever. And just watching it heal once the antibiotics kicked in, once they like drained it and all that, I was just like fascinated, because they say that too, your mouth is one of the fastest healing parts of your body.
Yeah.
So it was just really interesting to watch like day to day, like how it changed, and how the body just knows what to do too is also infinitely fascinating. Right, which coincides with things like yoga and like mindfulness and like your body knows. You just have to really be in tune with, is something wrong? Is something not right? Do I need to go get checked up? Do I need to stretch? Do I need to exercise? Do I need to hydrate? Like whatever. And so that is an infinitely fascinating aspect of existence to me, for sure.
The power of the human vessel.
Right? That part.
I love that. Speaking of body, today's topic is on spiritual hygiene, because niggas out here need better spiritual hygienic practices. And I feel like we're at a time where there's an awakening. I feel it. I don't know if other people feel it, but I feel like at least there's an awareness of something greater and our responsibility to that greater thing, right? But with that, I feel like spiritual hygiene wasn't something that I learned about till I had to use it, right? Like there was nothing there. I didn't even know it was a thing. But just like, we have physical hygiene, just like you wash your body every day and brush your teeth every day. There are inner practices that keep your soul clean as you're on this journey of in a very dirty place, to be quite frank. So I'm curious because you have a background in entertainment. I feel like you were in the depths of some dark stuff that can get dark. How do you navigate your own spiritual practice? First of all, your own awareness
Yeah.
with other people's lack of awareness, and the spiritual hygiene that you must implement on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a learning process. I mean, to be perfectly frank, I
Mhm.
was aware before the pandemic, but I feel like the pandemic and being locked in, right? So like one of the first things that I started to realize in terms of, this very aspect is like being inside
Yeah.
my unadulterated energy and not having energy vampires like
Yeah.
drain every day. I was bouncing off the walls, like literally moved from the one bedroom or one bath across to the two bedroom, two bath. But I was like, I need more
Space.
space for this. Yeah. And you that in itself was just such a journey of discovery on like how people, if you're not protecting yourself, if you're not paying attention to ritual, to cleansing, to clearing out. One of the other things that was just as kind of eye-opening for me was I went to Tulum and saw this healer and had like an energy blockage ceremony done. And it literally felt like an exorcism. And I realized how much, I was taking on from people and not clearing out regularly enough. So those two were pretty eye-opening for me. I think when it comes to entertainment or like, dark energies at work, somebody said something to me recently, or fairly recently. They were like, regardless of your religious practices or what have you, I have a relationship with God, the creator, however you want to
Mhm.
articulate it. And she was like, God's not the only one with the kingdom. And it kind of really brought full circle that idea of a lot of people talk of these things, love and light, spirituality, faith, what have you, energy, and don't really, really study how they work, let alone feel on some level that they can manipulate them. When in reality, if you know anything about energy, it is about a flow. It is about working for it. And it's not even within yourself, it's not about, eradicating one side. Like I hold precious this quote from Deepak Chopra that says that we're not flawed, we're complete. And in order to know your light, you have to intimately know your darkness. And so I think a big part of that hygiene is, it's cleaning, clarity, and, confronting those things within, I guess, would be like the three C's of
The
it.
three C's. We love that.
Like,
Cleaning,
I'm like, how do you bring this?
confrontation.
Right, because I will ramble for days. But yeah, no, cleansing that spirit, when you've had an exchange or when you've had energy rise up in you that's not really conducive to where you want to be, you might need to clear out. You know what I mean? You might need to light incense, you might need to sage and open the windows. That's another thing. Like people will do these things and not realize they're undoing these things. You're saging with your windows closed, it's coming right back to you, right? The clarity I think comes from really sitting down, maybe writing it out or having that objective friend. Like I have friends that I pray with that I have to say things out loud sometimes so I can get them, because when they're swimming in your head, you're going in loops, you're playing in the pandering to that. And the confrontation of it, it's not, I think people add really weird connotations and negativity to words when in reality they just are.
They just are words. I'm
They're
working
just
really good at
are.
that.
So like, the good and the bad of it is so subjective depending on where your spirit is. And the confrontation of it is facing it head on instead of just kind of brushing it back, or what people are now calling toxic positivity, where people are just, it's love and light no matter what, but you're not
All the time.
confronting things to grow through them. You're just kind of like shushing them under the rug or hiding them or just ignoring them completely
Yeah.
until they kind of blow up in your face. And so I think that those three things have really helped me. I think one of the things that often gets left out of the conversation is that it's very, very hard.
It's
Um,
a constant upkeep.
a constant upkeep. It's a lot of
Yeah.
feelings. It's a lot of, growth in itself is hard. And so I think allowing yourself the grace and compassion to recognize that.
Yeah. Oof. I like that. The 3 C's: cleansing, clarity, and confirmation.
Confirmation.
Speaking of clarity, I was like Googling, like doing my Googles, and I was like, what is spiritual hygiene? Like, let me get an actual definition. And there, I came across this article that describes it really well. And then it gives some examples of poor spiritual hygiene. And one of them was overthinking or debilitating mental traffic. And you
Yeah.
talked about getting things out of your head because sometimes we'll keep them in our minds and we won't give them a space so we can kind of free up some space in ourselves. And also, it allows us to see things a little bit more clearly when it's out of our head and it's out of our, like, mixed with our emotions and all of these things. And then you said toxic positivity. I actually had an encounter with that, and it's been a something that I've been grappling with in my life because there was a moment where, like, I feel like I was in a place where I finally understood I was exactly where I needed to be. And
Yeah.
I feel like I was in an alignment, but then also things were happening and I was trying to remain in this, like, I'm aligned, everything's fine, I'm aligned, like this really weird positive energy, as to not try to give energy to the fear that I had, instead of just like almost vomiting the fear to get it out and then being able to process. And I had to really grapple with, like, oh, it's because I live in a society that says, like, if I actively address the fear or the quote unquote negative things, and I'm not in a positive alignment. Like, that toxic positivity is so, I feel like it's so hard to find a balance within, right? Because you want to remain optimistic, you want to remain in faith, but then things happen and real emotions happen, and you're human and life happens pretty much. What are some effects or some ways that you're aware that, like, oh, I need to get my spiritual hygiene together? You had mentioned energy vampires.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are picking up on that too. Like when you leave somebody and you feel just drained and
Mhm.
tired. I notice for me too, when I need to clear out, I feel very heavy. And to be honest, like, I think one of the byproducts, I'm somebody who has suffered from depression. I've survived a suicide attempt. Um, I've survived a lot of darkness. And I think one of the things that it's left me with is, you know, kind of a more acute awareness of when I'm going there, when I'm going dark. And sometimes I need, to be alone. And I say all this to say, like, don't get me wrong. Some days you're just gonna want to be dark, and you just need that, and that's fine. You know what I mean? As long as you make sure you don't let yourself stay there.
Stay there.
And if you're having trouble getting out of it, you do vocalize that to someone. I think, another byproduct of toxic positivity is we have a lot of people holding a lot in because they don't want
You don't want
to
to fuck
weigh
up
down somebody else. Yeah. And
Right.
I'm always been that friend, which is I think part of why my blockage ceremony was so thick, was because I've always been that friend to be like, hey, I'm the friend you can go dark with. I'm the friend
Yeah.
you can say those things that are scary to say out loud with. I'm not afraid of them. But I think it really does have to do with feeling what we were saying earlier, and being in tune with yourself and being honest with yourself when you're not, really feeling like yourself.
Mm.
um, Therapy does help. I have like lists of my favorite things. I literally have a playlist called Set Spirit, and it's like 12 songs that no matter what mood I'm in, they just transcend me somewhere else. And it's like, it's a mix of some gospel, it's a mix of some frequency stuff, and then just songs that really like reverberate of being triumphant through those moments. um Sometimes it could be clearing out, items. I think a lot of us don't realize how much stuff
Ooh.
holds onto that. You know what I mean? It's so funny. I don't know if I can like turn the camera without like disrupting everything, but even my plants, like when I notice that they're drooping from
Yes.
you know what I mean? Having sentient beings around, like I used to be so terrified to be like, I'm gonna kill everything. But even now, just having plants thrive around me, it's an indicator.
Yeah,
Um,
they feed off the energy of you, and
exactly.
it's a reciprocal. I be telling people, if you can't keep plants alive, it's because you don't listen. Plants
Yeah.
force you to listen. They force you to listen to life's greater messages. They force
Yeah.
you to pay attention, even if we're so. Because sometimes we can get so like lost into what we're doing that we don't see that we're off. But a
Yeah.
plant will be there to be like, nah, your energy's off. You need to you need
why are you drooping? Because you're drooping. Like
period. Yeah. Yeah. You had mentioned being the friend that who's not afraid of darkness. And that is I want to let people know for if they are that friend or if they are the person who leans on friends like that, that is a task. What are some hygienic practices that you implement when it comes specifically to relationships?
who
Like that's a different thing than like just the world at large.
yeah, I think I've moved to a place in my life where I have to have friends that I can be transparent with.
Mm.
That I can really share my full truth without, fear of judgment or misunderstanding. I mean, and sometimes that happens, but like the type of friends that you can work through
Yeah.
that with. There's just too much going on in life and in the world to like have friends that you have to walk on eggshells with.
And
And
then
so,
to like go through the authenticity of life with. Like I feel
yeah,
like I feel like that's friendship is like knowing that like life is gonna happen and I'm here to do life alongside you and you're here to do life alongside me and
everything
whatever that looks
is
like.
like make or break, deal breaker.
Right.
We're
Right.
both human, and we make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I've learned that a lot more in the past couple years, and I've definitely felt like I'm in a transformation. I will say meditation and prayer
Mhm.
helps a lot, because again, with the sitting with yourself, sometimes you can get clarity. Um, you know, there's this other quote I heard that like if you focus too much on the past, you inspire depression, and if you focus too much on the future, you inspire anxiety. And I think a lot of times we don't realize how much our mind tells us a story, right? It could be as simple as you call a friend, they don't answer. You're like, oh, they're just busy, they'll get back to me. Or, oh no, that last exchange was really weird. They think
Now
I'm
you're
weird.
overthinking and you're in your head.
And now you're in a whole, you're literally
And then
manifesting.
they call you and they're like, oh, I was asleep. You're like,
And you're all weird. And like, why did I just waste that time? And so sometimes just taking that moment to just like chill and breathe and not take it personally, which goes to, the four agreements, which are tough as shit too. I think that those things help. And to be honest, like, I don't think that there's a prescribed right or wrong way. I think it's you do the best that you can and you try to keep informing your steps. But with relationships, I definitely lean more towards the fear of honesty and lean into that. Like, because oftentimes what I'm scared to say or do on the other side of it is exactly the breakthrough relationship wise that I needed. So
yeah,
a little bit of courage sprinkled in there too.
I love that. Ooh. I came to this realization recently, and I love how like whenever like I'm going through something, it always comes together in a very like mantra type of way. And this one was there is no truth without love, or there is no love without truth. Yeah, there is no love without truth.
Work.
And I've really been making, and I don't know if this is like also getting to your 30s type of thing where you're just like, I don't have no more fake to funk. I just
Yeah.
want to show up as is and be loved as I am. But then it also challenges you to accept and love people as they are as
Yeah.
well. I think boundaries is a big thing in relationships and in friendships, specifically in friendships that I've really been working through. And I'm learning that the relationships that are for me, I won't have to choose between myself and the other person.
Right.
Choosing myself will also be choosing the other person, and the boundaries that go with that, I feel like, are what strengthens a relationship. And that's a spiritual hygienic practice that we don't give credit to, is the boundaries that we set with our friendship and holding up those boundaries, whether it mean like, I don't have the space today to talk
Yeah.
about your shit, or like a big one is I tell my friends and I tell my clients who come to me, have people ask you before they just dump their shit on you. Like, have them say, hey, do you have the capacity for me to unload? And that's establishing healthy boundaries. Boundaries set up freedom within relationships. It allows relationships to be more free. And I think that's a very strong spiritual hygienic practice.
Yeah. And I mean, that too takes courage. Like, I definitely had a friend who I started to notice every time they hit me up, it was something negative or talking about people. And for a while, I just stopped answering.
Yeah.
Like,
But then at some point, you have to have a conversation.
yeah. And then I was like, listen, like, it to my spiritual hygiene, and to, I'm in a place I don't want to do this with you.
Mhm.
It doesn't feel good. It doesn't fit my spirit right now, and I'm not condemning you for it. I just don't want to participate in it.
Yeah.
um and that there was even somebody who like kind of tried to come back in my life, and he was like, I just expected it to be the same. And I was like, well, we need to acknowledge
You
that like
don't.
we might have bonded in toxicity, and we're not those same people anymore. At least I'm not.
Yeah.
And he didn't like that very much, but I also realized I really didn't need him back in my life. And so I think that it's it takes time to cultivate that discernment. But that's one of, again, going back to like being in the industry that I'm in, and the past couple of years of having that removed, it was eye-opening to realize how much I was in an industry that predicated on doing business with your friends, and how much these people were not your
Your
friends.
friends. Yeah. I've been hearing that a lot lately. I've been learning a lot about the ins and outs of the entertainment industry.
Special place.
Yeah, because I thought for a second I wanted to be in, like, I'm a writer. I've always been in like the traditional art world. I'm a visual artist. And then there was a moment in the middle of the pandemic where I was like, let me maybe pivot to TV and film. And I went over there and I like learned, and I talked to some people who were in the industry, and I learned very quickly it's very little creativity and more business.
Yeah,
And
you
I'm
got to
like,
be in it and out of it.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know, that saying do business with your friends doesn't look like it translates over there in that
Yeah.
space, because how many of those people are actually your friend? Like,
Listen, it is a smoke and mirrors place, but I think if you get your spiritual hygiene to a place,
mhm,
there are a lot of good people around and in it, who are very, very clear about their boundaries,
yeah,
and protect their spirit in ways. And I think that's necessary, because we do need more balance. And I think it's a I don't know. I always used to tell myself ideally aim karma points versus popularity points.
listen,
And, there will be phases, like popularity is so fleeting. You could be the it person now and down one moment, and like people have ebbs and flows. But in a land of Instagram, nobody really highlights that, right? It's always the announcement, the list, the this, the that, and the third. Nobody shows you that dark moment that happened before they got to that breakthrough. So I always, pride myself on being transparent about the humanity of it. And um, I will say I no longer subscribe to what doesn't suit my spirit in
mhm,
any way.
oof,
And where that leads me, who knows? But I think that the moment you stop letting yourself grow and evolve out of what you thought you would see for yourself, the moment you will get stuck in a really bad place and dark place.
yeah,
Spiritually.
yeah,
You gotta just stay open to how that will change versus how you saw it.
isn't
And I
that?
think, particularly with that industry where a lot of people pretend,
Hmm.
really be seeking out your authenticity, because that's gonna win over a lot of things.
I always say authenticity is going to outlive a trend every
Yeah, that
time.
part every time.
Time. How do you, and maybe this can go to like the friends that you have now, because I notice when you elevate yourself and then you get friendships who are also elevated, you be like, damn, I had to, like, you, first of all, you appreciate the work that you did to get to that point, because you realize, like, wow, I wouldn't even be in the same space with these people if I didn't do the work, and probably vice versa. How do you
Yeah.
create conversations around spiritual hygiene as like almost as casual as this, right? Because I feel like the spiritual journey is seen as something that can be lofty and not often, I guess, pragmatic to talk to, like, bring into just everyday environment. So how can someone take a conversation like spiritual hygiene into like a brunch with their girlfriends? Like, how is that?
Funny. I think if you really are doing the work, they naturally just happen.
Yeah.
And you find yourself in these, like, not the bad Me Too, but a good Me Too moment. You know what I mean? Where, like, somebody will express something that they, some epiphany they had, some breakthrough they had, some clarity that they've reached. And then all of a sudden it's like, me too. And here's the insight that I had. And here's the insight that I had. Because now you're on a different frequency with the
Yeah.
people you. And I think that frequency makes all the difference too. Like
Ooh,
you don't have that and not to say that everybody's, you get to this place where everybody's on the same page at all times. Like you're still very much going through different things in different ways, but the frequency of how you're looking at it is more aligned than it might have previously been. And so I feel like those occurrences just naturally start to present themselves when you are. And if they don't, that, going back to your earlier question, is an indication of some work that might need to be done.
yeah. If you find that spiritual hygiene is not a conversation that you can have with your girlfriends, and that's where you're at, then maybe some analyzation there.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
And what are the conversations you're having?
What
And
are the
how do they make you feel? Like, have check-ins with yourself. Like, how do you feel after that exchange?
Yeah. That's why I ask people, and I make it a habit of it. I stopped asking people, how are you doing? And started asking them, how are you feeling? Because I can't really do nothing about how you're doing. I could do something about how you're feeling. And I feel like that's not a question people ask. Like, I feel like me asking it prompts them to ask themselves, like, how am I feeling?
Yeah, I noticed that too. I started to say, how's your spirit?
Yeah, because it's such a deeper question. Like,
Also, there's just a lot of people where everything could be going well and
right.
they don't feel good inside.
That is true.
What's that phrase? There's so many millionaires that kill themselves. Like they're, especially during this time when people were isolated.
Money does not buy you happiness.
Doesn't. It
At
can buy a
all.
lot of things, but not
Which is
internal.
why I'm trying to check out of capitalism as much as I
Aren't we all?
can. It's so it's I'm not gonna say it's stressful. I think it's stressful dealing with people who constantly tell you that there is no other way outside of capitalism, and you knowing innately that there is.
Yeah.
And like almost looking crazy. Like I feel like half the time I'm like trying to convince people like, no, I can walk in my purpose and not have to like subscribe to capitalism. Like I firmly believe that, but it's really hard because other people don't.
And I don't think keeping up is natural for the spirit at all.
It's just not. It really isn't. It's just not keeping up. Just not for me. And if that means that I'm not working hard enough, then I guess I'm not working hard enough.
Yeah, no, it's not it.
Yeah. So I want to like kind of wrap up on this note because you had mentioned it earlier and I wanted to go back to it because I feel like as a Gemini, I really struggled with sitting the fuck down. But breath. I'm so grateful for breath. And you're an air sign too. You're a Libra, right? It's like us air signs, we got all the breath in the world, but can't sit the fuck down. And I really want to tell people that the moment you sit down and really connect with your breath, a lot of what you're feeling will be alleviated. A lot of what you're feeling will dissipate because you just recognize it's me. There's a certain gratitude in knowing that you have breath. And as long as I have breath, I have life. And as long as I have life, I have purpose. So yes. Do you have any messages for the collective? Anything that you feel like at this time is necessary as we're coming to what I feel like is a fracture, which I hope to be permanent in what was and what could be?
Yeah, we're definitely growing through change. But I think it's as simple as what you just said, is that you remember to take the time to breathe.
You said something to me when I called you one day. You were like, you have all the time. You have all, what did you say? You said, you have all the time. Take your time. And that plays literally daily. I'm like, take my time. I'm not on no one else's time.
Yeah, no, like, because listen, like I'm getting older, I guess you could say, even though I don't feel like it. And there, for the first time in a long time, because I used to have a prayer going back to the keep up, right? That no 2 days would be the same. Yeah. And I did that for like 10, 15 years. And I was always tired. I was always strained. I was missing out on a lot of aspects of life. Now we had this great reset where I really got to take time to myself. And even now, like I have the blessing of a remote job and I can really just sit here and talk to my plants and make a smoothie and just take my time. And I think that, in all that time that we're usually trying to figure everything out, more comes to you when you sit down with yourself.
I'm hearing that in some form or fashion.
So I think that people, if there's anything I would tell the community, is like people make excuses, they make all the reasons why they can't. Start make reasons why you can. And then start realizing when you do what's coming out of that. And it might feel silly at first. You might not think you're doing it right, but the reality is, it's like, it's a practice. You cultivate it, you practice, you build it up, and then before you know it, you realize, oh, this is why. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And on a funny, like, nerdy side of it, we're inhaling molecules that have all of existence's information in them. They've never been destroyed.
Mhm.
Energy never dies. We're breathing the same air in theory that the dinosaurs had, the same molecules or what have you. So when I think about it that way, I'm like, okay, let me just take a moment to commune with all of that knowing,
Yeah.
especially in moments when I don't know.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
It's crazy because, like, even whether it's a medical emergency, whether it's an anxious moment, whether it's a panic attack, whether it's a stressful moment, whether it's a grieving moment, taking that time makes all the difference.
Mhm. It really does.
And like, you can't say much more about it until you do it.
You really can't. Yeah, you really can't. Actually, I found that when I started meditating, and it took someone else telling me, like, you could get so much further if you just sit down. And I was like, okay, let me try this sitting down thing.
Yeah.
And I started meditating for 3 minutes and 33 seconds, and it was the longest 3 minutes and 33 seconds of my life. But I really did. I found release. I found cleansing. I found so much when I just sit down
Yeah.
and almost surrendered to just
Surrender is one word we didn't hit yet.
the natural order of energy, like just surrendered to what's happening, and you'll find where you need to be in flow and where you're out of flow. And now we're at like 10 minutes, which feels so good because
It's a process, but it's so worth it.
yeah, I would have never, like, if you feel like meditating is not for me, trust me, I thought the same thing.
Well, I can't sit. I'm a person. I have to go to sleep to noise. Like, my
Literally.
hear everything. So then that is the counter to that, because the world wants you to be distracted. The world wants you to be in disarray. The world wants you to be fully disconnected from who you are.
Yeah. And I
So
feel like when you're in the noise of this, you can't hear the
yeah,
vibrations and whispers of this, because that's not as loud as this. This is always going to be loud and consuming and overly stimulating. Yeah. Oh, I
it's
love
a
it.
process. Lean into it.
It's a process. This is a journey. There is no end. There is no beginning. And we are all not all on the same time, which is, I feel like what you were really saying when you were saying take your time.
Your
Like,
time.
oh, it's because we not
That's
all
yours.
there's not just one time that we're all just on.
Nope. It's
And
yours.
some are ahead of others. Like, we're all on our own individual timelines, and things are going to happen for us according to our timeline.
Exactly.
Wise words from you.
Listen, I'm just sharing what I've learned.
But you could share because you've been there, and that's the difference between getting advice from someone who's on the journey with you.
There. And I think that that's one thing to leave people with is, like, growth is not a landing place. It's eternal. So, each new level, you're going to figure out new ways, but it's these core concepts and these core disciplines, I think, that help us get out of anything. And I say that as I'm saying it to myself, really establishing discipline, even routines and ritual is tough when the opponent, the enemy, just wants you to be lazy and idle so they can distract you further.
But like you said, it's practice.
Practice.
It's practice. Where can I find you? Where can the people find you at?
Oh, I'm at Mir on most things. I'm not hard to find.
Mir, MEREMIR. Mir. Yes. Yes.
But it's not merely me. But yeah, I'm out here in this universe trying to be great like everybody else.
Yeah, Mir's amazing. Thank you for this conversation.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, I hope you gained something if you listen to this. And if you want to follow us, you can follow us at Spirituality, TEAY, where we get into the real tea of this journey of spirit and soul.
Do it. Click the subscribe.
Yes, please do. And till next time, thanks. We'll talk soon.